Welcome to another CPaaSAA Talks Leadership Series session, where we chat with the top leaders from our industry about one of their key career successes and have them share what they learned from their experience in hopes that we can gain some key takeaways as we look to help share best practices of what's working out there in the real world. Today, I am joined by Rebecca Johnson, the founder and CEO of Numerical. Welcome, Rebecca.
Thanks. I'm so excited to be here and chat with you about this.
It's been so great getting to know you over the last month or two as you've joined us here at the CPaaS Acceleration Alliance. Super impressed with what you're doing. And as a founder entrepreneur, it's really, really cool. I think our audience is really going to enjoy our session today because of your past experience and what you're trying to do to change the world now. So let's start. Give us a little background in who Rebecca is.
Yeah. So Rebecca Johnson, founder and CEO of Numerical, first-time founder, first-time CEO, launched the company in January of 2018. My background has been technology, regulations, and found myself in communications, late 20s. And it's interesting, this career, once you get into it, you don't leave it. It's really kind of a, once you're sucked in, like there's just so many opportunities and there's a lot of things we're doing that are really good for consumers and just communications globally. It's how everything operates. So had an interesting journey pathway and I absolutely love what we're doing. And, just addressing fraud and communications is what our focus is.
Exactly. No, you should be the best friend of every consumer out there, helping them avoid all those fraudulent calls that are coming in. So we may get into that a little bit.
For my parents, I haven't achieved anything.
There you go. There you go. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. So as you look back, across your career and what you've done, I'd love to learn about a particular success that you've had in your past and see what we might be able to learn from that journey.
Yeah, so a success that I was reflecting on is one I didn't realize I was doing in the midst of it. Some successes can only be realized after you look past in the back, but at the time it felt like survival, a different
Right.
S word. So really starting my company where there was no market, there was no solution. And I was also learning how to be a single mom with 100% custody of my kids, elementary age. So that was a lot to take on. And the fact that I made it through that and successfully launched our company, is one of my greatest achievements in my career. But as I said at the time, the whole experience was survival and moving forward as opposed to backwards, both professionally and in my personal life. And something that most people don't know, I actually started the company after getting fired. So I reported to a new boss within 5 days. He fired me for really no reason. I don't hold on to things and get bitter about them because those hold you back in life. So I cried for about, 5 hours, woke up the next morning and said, that's it, I'm moving forward, and started the journey towards launching Numerical.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. You look across the entrepreneurial landscape, and I think some of the key successes have really been individuals that have had to in their lives survive, right? That's the motivation.
Yes.
That you put in that extra, I was going to say 1 hour, but it's more like 5 or 6 hours a day. It's figuring out what you do with your family, and you have that extra drive. So that can be a key factor in success. I think the next step, though, is as a founding CEO, you have that drive. It can't be a one-man show, right? And so,
Right.
Team is critical. And so I'd like to learn how you've approached your team and how you're building that team there at Numerical.
Yeah, I would say definitely for a founding team, when you're in those infancy stages of launching a company, you have to have people who are aligned on your vision and meet your passion. And that's your hire number one, number two. Like when you get like the five, that core five, they have to be just as into this. It cannot be, oh, that looks like a fun experience, I'll just do a job. If it doesn't work out, I'm out. No, my core founding team are here till the end. And that is the approach that they brought to it. Now, how you find those people, be surprised. Anis, my chief technology officer, never met him before he joined the team. So that requires a little bit of, I think, of a maturity in the individual who's finding team. I understand humans. I love to study about the psychology of how we approach life. How people react and respond to certain situations can tell you a lot about their maturity level, both emotionally and professionally, where they're at. So my core team is incredibly mature and high on the EQ side, but also their subject matter expertise. And there's got to be a willingness to take some risk and handle the ups and downs. I can't carry the full load. I do try to front that a lot to the rest of my team. But these individuals, they don't shake, they don't rock. They are so solid on how they approach challenges. And we've had 6 years of working together, and I trust them. Like they're just a core team. So, I think that's really critically important. And I fired someone very quick that I had thought I was going to bring on. He misstepped one time with me. We'll not go into the details of it, but it was enough for me to go, wait a minute, I'm the CEO here. I don't have to put up with this. So you're out. And you've got to be quick to make those decisions to drop the people who are going to hold you back.
Yeah. That leads to a follow-up question in the sense that oftentimes when we do hire mature professionals, they come with kind of their own take on the industry. So what have you done specifically to help get that alignment, helping them to understand your vision so that you can lead them? I'd like to understand kind of that next level a little bit if you have something that you could share there.
Yeah, there's usually kind of like one or two people, and I can spot them pretty fast. There's the person who really they might be knowledgeable and a subject matter expert in their field, but they spend more time trying to get everyone to recognize that. And that's just a big red flag of, oop, they got insecurities. Fine, you got to work through those on your own, but you're not going to be working on those while I'm in the mode of, we got to go, go, go. So you do have to kind of weed out, and that's where you've got to know how to talk to them. What questions? Are they asking you questions, or do they just keep continually telling you how they're such a subject matter expert on all these things? So that to me is one of the biggest red flags. If all you're doing is just talking at me, I don't care what your certifications are. I don't care where you went to college. You're not a team player. You just want to own. So my team, that's why I like these conversations I had multiple times with my core team. They were asking me just as many questions that I was asking them about, where is this going? What challenges do you see? How are you going to overcome them? I asked them that, they asked me that. And so that's when you can start early on that it is a back and forth fluid. Now, it doesn't mean that they just tell me what I want to hear. I hate that. I don't respect that. So the team knows how to address like certain issues or where they may see something differently. And I respect that. And part of it is you can have a different opinion. You have to bring in what your opinion is and a plan to achieve it. And sometimes I go, you know what? You saw a bunch of things I didn't see. I like that idea. Let's go forward with that. And then I ask, how can I support you? So I think, early on, you have to have a conversation, do more listening than talking to the people that you're looking at to bring on your team.
Okay. That makes a ton of sense. So I've found within organizations that different tools work better for some organizations than others. I'm curious what technologies you maybe have brought into Numerical as a startup and, grown to the size of the team that you have now that you've found useful, and maybe some that you thought would be, and you kind of threw those in the dustbin along the way. But I'd like to learn what you've done on that front.
Yeah. So when it comes to the technology aspect, so I'm an engineer by trade, graduated college. Actually, while I was in college, I was already working on programs professionally. And I learned very quickly from one engineering job to another. All I did was inherit other people's bad code. And most of my jobs were, okay, we have this Frox Pro database. We got to convert all the services over to SQL. And, it was just like, okay, this isn't really innovative. I'm just kind of fixing things. So when I launched the company, it was like an aha moment that, wait a minute, we get to start from scratch. We get to use the latest tools. I'm not back in this engineering mode where I have to convince my leaders that we should probably upgrade to maybe AWS. Like, let's move off of certain things. Like, we don't need to build our data centers. Like, we have cost, effectiveness here. Those are big projects. So getting the first architectural design for our solution and knowing that we could use the latest technologies was a huge step forward. That's allowed us to be very rapid, very quick on our deployments. The other thing that I would recommend, and I still see this as a challenge for established companies and startups, we are API first. Our entire platform, all of our solutions, we build it, we call our own APIs. So, that's one thing where in order to do integrations, we should all just understand we're building technology. We got to integrate with something. Your data and your platform will flow to someone else's data and another platform, and vice versa. So I really get upset when I see a new tool or solution, and then I ask, do you have APIs? Oh, it's on the roadmap. I'm like, shame on you. That as soon as you say it's on the roadmap, it means that's not a top of mind. That's not how your technology is actually deployed and delivered. We can turn up a new instance that looks exactly like our customer's brand within 48 hours. Super easy. Never experienced that in my past. So specific to tools, not necessarily, because those change all the time. I think it's more about the methodology and the approach that you use to develop the solutions that you do. Can't corner yourself or your customer into a place of no options.
Right. Definitely. That's for certain. And internally, as you work with your team, is there certain platforms or technology that you use, either from an HR or, interacting, communicating with the team? What do you do on that front? Is actual day-to-day tools for interaction with you and your customers?
Yeah, Kevin, let me preface that before getting into the tools is that Numerical is fully remote. We do not have an office and never have. We've been remote since day one. I have employees in the US, Canada, Pakistan, and India. So we're global, we're all over the place, and yet we're very close. So the way that we achieve that absolutely is through tools. And we are, there's complaints about all different tools that are on the market, but we are leveraging Microsoft Teams, the full suite. I love to use Loop. I love to use Planner. There's a lot of additional little plugins that come with Microsoft Teams. So that's what we use to stay connected, to stay organized, our meetings that we have. So I think that's that's the glue. That's what allows us to stay connected. But on top of the tool, I would also say you can't just deploy a tool and think, oh, well, that gets everybody connected and working together. Not the case. It has to be a part of the culture and how you interact. So we actually have created some kind of random teams and chats that allow people to post whatever. Here's a recipe I loved last night and I want to share it with the group. Since we are international, we love to celebrate the holidays and see what people are doing in other countries. So there will be a lot of that activity. So I think that's really critical, not only just the tool, but how you want your culture in that tool. And you have to deliberately define that. And that comes from leadership down. So that would be one of my warnings about leveraging social media tools.
That's great. That's great. Now, when I was part of Telestacks, we were remote from day one, and that was 2010-ish when the company started. Yeah, and so it started with Skype, and then it was great when Slack came, and then that was our life. And
Yes.
but you're right. I think one of the things that we learned in that environment too is that there's a tendency to do direct messaging between colleagues, which in some cases is perfectly fine. But having those conversations in more of a channel where other colleagues and peers are there, we found that was really effective too, because then you had that information, everybody was seeing it. So somebody might be asking a question and there might be 5 other people with the same question.
Mhm.
So, I think there are a lot of little ins and outs of how we use these platforms. And I don't know why anybody has an office anymore, but remote works great when you do it right.
Yeah. I will say
Yeah.
though, what is important is having the teams get together in person as well too. And that does require planning the year in advance. So for 2025, you should be planning for get-togethers and what the budgets are to allocate resources to that. You can't think about it within the year that you're like, oh, we should get together. So if you can do an all hands meeting, definitely try that. I know it gets more challenging the larger the organization gets, but definitely at a minimum, departmental get-togethers, find a location that works and meet in person. It could just be a day and a half, but that goes a very long way because it's that connector, the human connection aspect where that everybody's got your back and they will support you and be available to you. So that would be my recommendation, is to include the human interaction part still.
Right. No, that's a good point. That's a great point as well. So in your role as a founder CEO, I'm assuming that you have some level of investment in the company. How do you personally work with your board and your investors? I'm kind of curious. That's always a struggle for a lot of entrepreneurs.
Mhm.
It is my company, but there is some oversight and there's some others that you have to manage and communicate with. So I'd be
Yeah.
curious to understand your approach to that.
Yeah, so I started the company with my own investment and then did friends and family. So definitely have mom and dad in there and my siblings as well, which is huge to have your family believe in you at that level, even if they didn't understand. And I don't know that they still do understand what I do. But they believed in me that no matter what I set my mind to, I usually achieve it. And takes a lot of hard work, doesn't just come to me. So started off like that, and then did go through a fundraise round and discovered that was the biggest waste of my time. The amount of energy that I put into fundraising for an idea, I applied that to actually just building the idea and taking it out to market. And you can look at our revenue, our ARR growth year over year. And then that's like the point where I went, oh, go up and to the right. Great. So it took 5 years, 5.5 years of being successful and having month over month, year over year growth before I could actually get attention from investors. And that's a different topic when we talk about minorities and women and how we're barely 2% of the VC funds. That's wrong. That doesn't mean that there's not women to invest in. But it's a challenge. Women are usually approached as high risk. Men are usually approached as high profit. So we have to overcome that risk approach to investing in us. And that's why it requires most women have to be very successful for many years to overcome that whole concept of you're a risk. So that can bring on a lot of I worked really hard for this, and this is really difficult to get funding. And I wanted funding to grow and expand beyond what our current revenue could carry. And I think that's a great place to get that infusion of cash. So finding the right partner, which we did, we are so fortunate in who we are partnered with. Also knowing how to negotiate through the terms and seeing how that happens, because your adversaries during the due diligence, just be honest. I mean, you both are coming to the table wanting something from the other. So you have to move from that adversary role into a partnership role. And that has to be deliberate. I would warn, I had emotions during the process. We're humans, men and women both have emotions. Do not act on the emotions. Once you do, that relationship will start to falter a little bit. And then you're going to start to see your board as, oh, they're telling me what to do. And sometimes they want to, but knowing what is the arrangement of this relationship and being confident to act and operate within your roles, because I'm majority shareholder still. I'm the chairman of the board. Separately and independently, I'm the CEO. So I have 3 very distinct separate roles. Where some CEOs go wrong is they tie all of those things together, and it's only valid if you're in the role of CEO. Danger zone. Do not, so you have to like remove your identity from your company, from your role, and then see that your identity is actually in different types of approaches: shareholder, common shareholder, CEO, and maybe chairman of the board. 3 different roles. And if they're all tied to your appointment as CEO and they go away if you are removed, that's, you should be fighting to make sure that those are independent from that perspective. So with my board, we are all aligned. That is very important to me. And part of alignment is expectation. Setting the expectation in advance of your board meeting of what's going on, what are we going to discuss, and always listen to your board on what they would like to see in the next meeting. Because those individuals, especially if it's an investor on the board, they have their own job to do. You're one of several companies in their portfolio, and they have to report up. So be considerate of what they need from that meeting, and know that it's not all about you getting stuff from them. You actually need to contribute so that they can be successful. And if you need additional funds, keep a good relationship. Otherwise, you burn bridges. So we could do a whole topic on that one. But those would be some of the issues that I kind of recognize and see from others, that if they could just address those, they might have a better, smoother relationship with their board.
Right. So as you wear those 3 different hats along with the hat of mother, how have you found the ability to keep that balance? I think that's a key thing I admire in how you've approached this.
Yeah, I will say, especially when launching the company and being very alone, I had to learn what are my priorities and set it straight. And at the time I had children in elementary, and my kids had to be priority. Launching the company could not be. And I didn't have a partner. It was just by myself. So giving myself the freedom to focus on the kids and not feel guilty about that. So you like, oh God, the company's not moving forward. Focusing on the company and advancing it as best I could with the time that I had required me to be efficient. It required me to be deliberate. It required me to not waste time on things that weren't moving things forward. I was so strategic in those beginning days. And part of what I used to tell people is I'd execute the plan for today, make a plan for tomorrow, but I could wake up Monday morning and not know that I was going to be in California on Thursday. It was just this constant like moving, going back and forth. And then recognizing when I hit a point that I needed help. And then you're just growing. It's not like you ever reach a point. I'm 6 years into this. I have a COO, a CTO, a CFO. There's still more things that I need, to kind of round things out. But there is a transition that you'll go through to where you have to redefine what CEO is. Because when I was the CEO to start off, I was over product, I was sales, I was marketing. I played all these different roles. And eventually I had to delegate. And that's easier if you're not a control freak. Control people are actually very weak and insecure because they don't trust others because they wouldn't even trust themselves to do it. So they struggle with owning it themselves. So you've got to be able to let go and not tie your identity to those actions that you're doing. You'll grow. You'll grow if you can achieve that. It was challenging. It's not easy. I'm not saying this is easy, but.
Right. Well, nothing worthwhile rarely is. So.
No.
Right,
and I don't know that I have the energy to do it again. I mean, I'm in my mid-40s, so I can't imagine. I just don't know where I got that energy. It's a lot.
Right. Passion. You had a problem that you could solve. That's right. That's right. So along this journey, I'm sure it hasn't all gone perfect. Is there a point that you could look at of a learning moment, if we cast it in that light, that maybe you wouldn't have done it that way a second time?
Yeah, I actually approach life in when it comes to that kind of topic. There's two things that can occur. There's failure, and then there's mistakes. And for me, I define failure is basically just not achieving the end result you expected. That was at the end of execution of excellence. So that's just called failure, which allows you to go, huh, there's some lessons learned. Let's repeat and go forward. There's nothing wrong with that. But mistakes, those are the things that are not acceptable. My best analogy that I give people is we don't want the nurse who's giving medication to make a mistake. We don't want our pharmacist to make a mistake. That's just not doing your job. That is missing something critical. So those can't be allowed. But failures, I've had so many I can't even count because I define failure as just it wasn't the result that I expected at the end of those actions. So you go down a pathway and it doesn't get you where you want to go. You back up and then you go this way and then you get around it. Like I don't even like it's happened so many times now that it's like, oh, whatever. It rolls off my shoulders and I move on to the next thing. Like that's part of this journey. Lots of failures, but don't
Yeah,
repeat the same one.
that's the key. That's clearly the
Yeah.
key. So if we look out a couple of years, what does life look like for Rebecca Johnson as you're on this journey?
Oh, I have so many different versions. A couple of years from now, I really want to see identity fully adopted and on its way into technology, whether it's voice, messaging, social, AI. I mean, that's really my mission. And I would love to be able to put my name on that as an achievement for my purpose in life. I've been passionate about identity since my 20s and didn't fully understand the technology aspect of it, but I love data. So a stint in my career, I did a lot of data design and identity just kept popping up. I'd have the same individuals in multiple databases and their contact information would get updated at their doctor's office. So I used to think like, why can't I take that and apply it over to the school? Because their cell phone numbers changed or their addresses changed. So, in 2 to 3 years, I'm really hopeful and I expect that we will at least have identity in the voice channel. And if we do not, it will not be because there's not a solution. It will be lack of efforts and perhaps maybe passion or allocation of budget dollars by terminating carriers and those participating in communications. So it's doable, it's possible. So that's what I hope we're achieving in 2 years.
Yeah, well, as we started the conversation, I think that's what all consumers are hoping for is being
Absolutely.
able to manage and secure their identity. And um, I mean, nobody will even pick up the phone anymore because they don't trust any of the numbers that come in. So
Yeah.
you're
Yeah.
you're doing a great work on that front for sure. Um, I really appreciate the time that we've had as we've had the conversation. Um, I think about your team building and finding these mature professionals, but it sounds like trust is a key part of how you work with your organization. And by listening to them or having them ask questions, that seems to be a great methodology that probably empowers them. And then
Hmm.
with that trust allows them to go out and really be successful at what they do. Um, I like the idea on the team side too, remembering that there is that human element, being able to get together with the whole team, even if at some cost, right? That's going to be a major budget item. But I have some memories of those get-togethers as well, and they're still some of my favorite times. And so the camaraderie and relationships that you can grow there are key. So I definitely can echo your suggestion and best practice there and working remotely and being able to do that. Um, I also liked your point of you can get emotional, but don't act on it.
Yes.
I think that's so important just in life, but in
Mhm.
business, as you mentioned, you really can't burn bridges.
No.
You never know when that relationship's going to circle around and
Yep.
and be impactful down the
Yep.
road as well. So, um, and that's a good one. I think that we can all take to the bank and follow through on. Um, any last thoughts that you'd like to share as we wrap up here?
The only one that comes to mind as we're just kind of having this conversation is, just the encouragement to people in the industry, and it doesn't matter what your role is, what you're doing, what position you're at. Always do your job to improve yourself. My journey to the point of launching my company, I've had so many bad bosses. And
Mm,
I used to wonder why do I keep getting put in like toxic situations? And at a young age, the way to kind of wrap my mind around it was, oh, I'm on the battlefield. Like I'm training. I'm in a training mode here, and I'm learning so much about how I don't want to be treated. And so I took all those lessons and just viewed it that life was preparing me for
mm,
something greater. I had no idea what it was going to be. And honestly, starting Numerical, I wasn't even planning it. I got fired and I had to, I was like, I think I can solve this problem with robocalls and I got to just
yeah,
do it. So I would just encourage anyone who's in like some tough situations, look at yourself and go, what can I learn from this? And if it's just how to treat a human, then
mm,
you take that and you do not reflect the way that toxic person is to you and be that beam, that shining light. People will see it. So that would be
that's a
parting message.
awesome way to wrap up and finish. That's an important thought because at the end of the day, we're not robots. That's
Well,
you know that human side of business and relationships is really in many cases the difference between success and failure, and having that enjoyable balance of life as well. So love it. Love your leadership. Excited that we're working closely together with the Security and Trust Working Group,
yes.
and um, I'm sure that passion's going to come through and make an impact here at CPaaSAA as well. So, Rebecca, thank you for your time, and we'll be meeting again soon.
Thank you.